Hello, everyone. I'm Alika from Hulu Holdings, and I'm the backup MC, real backup. But right now, we want to introduce. I don't know who's going first. Kiahi, you're going to go first. So you guys all heard about the bill that Keone talked about that we got through in the governor's side and the legislature. These are our champions right here who helped champion that bill to get it through for us. It's not easy. When I talk to people, it says it takes years sometimes, and we got it through the first crack. So right now I want to introduce Kiai Ronald. He's going to talk on behalf of Maile Shimabukuro. Senator Maile Shimabukuro.
Thanks. You know, I have training as a mechanical engineer, and I'd like to think I'm pretty aware of energy in particular. But when the senator brought about this legislation for this carbon capture system, I said, but she was exceedingly motivated, which is primarily why she's the captain of the ship and I just try to be the engine. But predominantly, Senator Shimabukuro is a senator for the 21st District. That's the highest concentration and the largest aggregate population of Hawaiians. And so from those traditions, since the beginning of time, we have lived a sustainable and a sustainable in harmony with nature. And we have so drifted past that as a state. And to see everybody, even from outside our state and from outside of our country, have these solutions to our unsustainable current way of living is, I'm looking forward to update the senator on what you guys are doing here today. Whenever and wherever this type of work needs support, you can guarantee that Senator Shimabukuro and I will be working very closely with you and for you and in support of the efforts that you guys have. Once again, it's Senator Shimabukuro. You give us a call, I guarantee we'll be there and to support. And I appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you.
All right, aloha kako. Yeah, so nice to see all you folks today. I have to say that this particular place, this space, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Lisa Martin, and I represent Waimanalo and Kailua in the state legislature. I'm new. This is my first term, so just a year and a half ago I started this job. But 10 years ago, I was in this very room. I came with my father, who's an ecologist, to hear a talk or a series of talks on climate change. And I came because I was already concerned about climate change. But at that talk, it had the intended effect. I was feeling quite panicked listening to the speakers and reflecting on how little action we were taking at that time. And I turned to my father and I said, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for having brought children into the world, given the way things are heading. And he turned and he looked back at me and he said, I was thinking the exact same thing. And he's talking about me. But I just want to say that since that time, I resolved in this room just to show that these kinds of public, educational events, interactions do have an effect. At that time, I decided that I would do more than just try to reduce my personal carbon footprint. I wanted to do something bigger. And so I tried a few different things, and what I settled on is I started a nonprofit that focuses on climate change education. We now have a lot of science curriculum that we train teachers to use, and we do workshops in schools. We also bring the students and other community groups to plant a native forest on the watershed of Hamakua Marsh, which is a state wildlife sanctuary, so that I learn about climate change, but then they feel empowered to take action and do something about it. I also, as part of that nonprofit, worked on lobbying for renewable power, renewable transportation here with our state. And then 2 years ago, I decided to stop lobbying and try to get a job in the building to have my own vote. So that part of our nonprofit is no longer active. But this is an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. And I just want to say that now I feel much less concerned than I did 10 years ago. even though we're seeing the effects of climate change, we're seeing more natural disasters, we're seeing what happens, and yet I am less panicked. I'm now looking forward to grandchildren, I hope, because I'm not alone in that. I feel like there has been a huge transformation in thinking. What had been a relatively fringe concern, despite the fact that we had known about the impact of putting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere for more than 55 years, suddenly in the last 10 years, it has become very mainstream to be concerned about that. And with that widespread understanding and concern, we're seeing a lot more change. And people like those here today from Vietnam, from Korea, from our community that have that shared concern, that's what gives me hope for our future. We also see that the technology is coming along. We've always had other sources of energy. That hasn't been an issue, but we haven't previously had the motivation to invest and create a market to get those different sources of energy in use. So that's something that's changing now. We have the prices are on our side. It's cheaper to use renewable energy in many cases and in many places. So I feel like that's momentum that once the price point is on your side, there's no going back, right? That is true for transportation as well as power. And I'm happy to say that tomorrow I will not be able to attend this event because I will be at our only coal plant in our state at the ceremony of its closing down, right? So we will have no more coal here in Hawaii. Yeah. So we do have a lot of momentum. I'm going to see what else I thought I wanted to tell you folks today. So we do need to focus on every aspect, right? It's not just being more energy efficient, using alternative forms of power, reusing our waste, seeing our waste as a resource. All of those things will help us put less carbon into our atmosphere. But we already have a lot of carbon up there, more than we want, and we keep putting more every day. So we also need the technologies like what we're talking about here today to actually take carbon out of our atmosphere. And that's a really exciting thing. We need all these different pieces to the puzzle. And some of the presentations today about, building efficiency, all this stuff, they're all different pieces. And I was really excited when, is Scotty Reese Moniz in the room right now? Oh, yes, he is. He's in the back. So Scotty, who's from my district, from Waimanalo, and is a real mover and shaker in the community, he sends me ideas sometimes. And a lot of times I'm like, this is a good idea, but I don't know what to do with this. This time, he hit the jackpot. He sent me the DIBS project, and I said, oh my gosh, this is something I can work with, right? Because it's up my alley. I was the vice chair of Energy and Environmental Protection. And when I read about the project, they had me at carbon capture, right? Talking about capturing the emissions from the fuel processing. But there was more. It was also about using that carbon and liquid CO2 as fertilizer, as soil enhancers for our agriculture, which I very much support, and we definitely need more local agriculture. Growing that agriculture, of course, we sequester more carbon from the air. In addition to that, they're talking about planting hemp. Now that hemp cleans our soils, cleans toxins out of our soils, and if we use that hemp for local building materials, it keeps that carbon stored in there. The only thing that could have made it even better, which we changed the bill so it did, is we will also be able to use that liquid CO2 for concrete. When you mix it with concrete, it makes the chemical bond stronger, so you can use less concrete. And as we know, concrete is another source of carbon emissions. And that's something that our highways are already doing. And this last session, we put into law that they will continue to, the Department of Transportation will continue to use this lower carbon concrete, and also our public works projects. With the state as a leader, since it is cost neutral, once all the concrete businesses have the capacity to do this because they would like to get that state business, they can offer it up to the private sector as well. Again, cost neutral. So these are the kind of changes that we need, so many small pieces to the pie. And I'm so excited that we have our local innovators here willing to lead the way, and we have our international partners willing to help them and support them in that, because in the end, we are all neighbors across the Pacific, and what happens in one part, in one country, becomes a model that we can pick up everywhere else. So hopefully here in Hawaii, we will develop some models and push some technology forward that can be used and can become the new norm, because that's what we need to do, is we need to change our habits, change the way we do things, and do them better. And I really appreciate you folks for coming today and being part of that effort. Mahalo.
Aloha. Good to see such a diverse group of people here today, including our good friends from Vietnam and other places around the world. My name is Scott Glenn. I'm the Chief Energy Officer for the state of Hawaii, and I feel very honored to be able to help lead the state in this important transition that it's going through. I want to mahalo Senator Shimabukuro, even though she can't be here. Her leadership on this has been very important, and her helping to advocate at the legislature has been critical. I also want to mahalo Representative Martin. I think I was here too 10 years ago for those same things, those same presentations. And she didn't highlight this point, but she not only got elected, she immediately became the vice chair of the committee in charge of this stuff. So really kudos to Rep. Martin, and also for covering all the things I was going to, so I don't have to talk about it now. So thank you. What I would like to do is share a little story. About 7-9 months ago in November, I had just come back from Glasgow, Scotland, and Iceland. I was able to go there to accompany Governor Ige for the UN Conference of Parties, the climate change conference. There we were to advocate for Hawaii's leadership on climate and how much progress we were making on renewable energy and decarbonizing our economy. And there's a lot of folks there who are very interested in what Hawaii is doing, because we were the first state to commit to 100% renewable energy. And that's since swept the world. Just for perspective, oftentimes I hear a lot of people say, we're just a little Hawaii, why does it matter what Hawaii does? Well, we were the first state to commit to 100% renewable energy in 2015. We're an island of 1.4 million people, and today, 6-7 years later, there are over 170 million people in the United States living in places with a 100% renewable energy commitment. Today, more than 50% of the US economy is in states with a 100% renewable energy commitment. That's the third largest economy in the world, behind the United States and China. That all started here in this building in 2015 when the legislature made that commitment and the governor signed it into law. So what happens in Hawaii matters, and I think that's something that we should always bear in mind when we think about the innovative opportunities we have in front of us. Island thinking is something that the world responds to because Earth itself is an island, right? We can't go to another planet for help. And that's how we have to think about things here in the islands. Our electricity is made on the island that it's used. We don't have cables connecting our islands. We can't go to a neighboring country or state for help for our electricity. But in going to that trip, afterward, I went to Iceland, and there I went to go visit their geothermal power plant, their geologic sequestration company, Carbfix, and the new Climeworks direct air capture facility that pulls carbon dioxide out of the air and then puts it into the ground and locks it away forever, which is a very cutting-edge technology that we will need. And I went there to explore its viability for Hawaii. There's a lot of possibility. When I came back to Hawaii, I was at a young energy professionals meeting to kind of debrief about this for some of the energy professionals to learn about this trip and some of the thinking going on. And suddenly, out of the blue, these three guys show up, Keone, Sydney, and Alika. And I'm like, well, one, I'm not sure they're young professionals, but what are they doing here? And so, they asked some really challenging questions. And, it really helped us clarify some of our own thinking. Yes, we need to pull CO2 out of the air. Yes, we need to lock it away underground for the rest of civilization, basically. But there's also a lot of economic needs for CO2 that we as the Energy Office had not been paying attention to, that we were not even aware of, and how much that cost for carbon dioxide was affecting the economy. How much of some of our most important industries depend on carbon dioxide as part of their inputs to be successful. Refrigeration for airlines and catering and agriculture in particular need CO2. And so why would we bury CO2 at the same time that we need it and are using it from fossil fuels? So this got us really thinking about it. And Keone, Sydney, and Alika came to the office. We had several conversations where we really kicked this around. And I challenged them to think about, we need to figure out a way that we're relying on CO2 for our industrial needs, our commercial needs, our economic growth that's coming from the air and not coming from the ground. How do we, disconnect and get ourselves off the fossil fuel addiction? And how do we start using the CO2 from the air to meet these needs? And so they really put pencil to paper, and they came back and they said, we think we got it. We got an idea here to integrate this with farming and construction and some of the other economic needs to try to make a bit more of a holistic, systemic perspective. And I said, we're on board. That sounds good to me. So I just want to share that this is how these things start, right? It's people thinking about it, connecting the dots, looking with new ways, bringing new perspectives to a conversation. And so now we as the State Energy Office are leading a decarbonization strategy for the economy that now has a clear component about carbon capture, utilization and storage because of this conversation. The support that we gave to this bill at the legislature stemmed from this conversation and the perspective of how do we as an economy manage not just our energy, but the other inputs that we need that are affected by energy or also affecting our way of life. And so the ways that we can pull those together in a more sustainable way that makes them either easier to rely on locally with indigenous sources or at least sources that don't harm us, then that's the way to go. And so I want to commend you guys and for this conference and this forum for taking this conversation another step further and starting to move this towards implementation and realization. And we are a partner, we're here, and we look forward to continued dialogue. So thank you all again for the work you're doing and inviting me to be here today. Thank you.
Okay, before I introduce the next motley crew of speakers, okay, and if you look on your cover, we have this great thing about Queen Liliuokalani. And what people don't realize is that she started the agriculture school of agriculture back in 1893. Now some people fight who started it. Was it the Queen or was it somebody else? It was the Queen. So, and that was the first school for the University of Hawaii, the domino effect of that. And the reason why we're having this event, not just to honor the Queen, is pay our respects to the governor there. And it's really important because we're all about taking the bad stuff, putting it where it belongs, making it into good stuff, and making it into agriculture. So that's important. When you have limited resources here in Hawaii, it's important that we grow what we can do here in Hawaii on our own. And I don't like to keep talking because I got 2 minutes. No, right now, is everybody okay? Anyone want to stand up and stretch? Want you to stand up and stretch? No? You can? Yeah, okay, there's the voice right there. So I want to introduce the best looking guy in this room right now, Mr. Donald Ford. Oh, hey, Mr. Ford. Keone's there, but I got Keone Ford from Dibs, Hawaii here, and his father and his mother is here too, who are also owners of Dibs, Hawaii. And all the way from Texas via California, I have Mr. Tom Quinn, who's with his company is H2 and associated with my company, Ho'olu Holdings. So they're going to talk all about that. So if you're in this room, you're going to see our whole plan from nuts to soup of how we're working businesses and nonprofits together to make this a better place for all Hawaiians for the future. So Keone, or who's first? You first.
Hello, Maikako. Nice to see you all again. I didn't know about the first time coming up to speak, so that was a little bit of a surprise. My presentation now is not a surprise. I did tell Alika that in my last presentation, I didn't get a chance to thank so many people that make wonderful things like this consortium happen. So I told him I was going to not present, and I was just going to spend the time thanking all of my friends. And he said, no, don't do that because you'll run out of time. But I do want to thank, I do want to continue to thanking people. I wanted to thank Representative Jackson Sayama for taking charge and setting this up. I also want to thank Evelyn He, his office manager, incredible personnel, and to make this event happen. All of the people in the back who made all of the filming and the Zoom and the presentations possible, mahalo nui. Scott Glenn, you weren't here earlier to hear me thank you, but thank you so much. I'll never forget that evening. It was a lot of fun. We did kind of bombard your evening. I'm so glad we did. So with that being said, I'm ready to begin my presentation. Sydney, how does it work? Do I use this thing here? Okay. All right. So earlier I briefly talked about the consortium, and we talked about all the members of the consortium. Here they are. It's a collection of for-profits, nonprofits, innovators, business leaders, community servants, and it's really built around servitude and giving back to our community. And we figured if we're doing all these things naturally in a space of aloha, then it'd be very easy for us to work together to start tackling something like carbon recovery, carbon capture, storing it, and of course, utilization. So at that moment, in the spirit of that, we created the CCSU Consortium. Carbon capture, storage, utilization. So my company, Dibs Hawaii, we're a native Hawaiian company. We were established in 2009. We've been doing dry ice cleaning for the state of Hawaii for the last 13 years. When we initially started this project, when we started this company, we wanted to be able to clean, providing an effective level of clean, accolade level of clean, without doing any secondary waste stream. So I took a carbon neutral standpoint at the time. We weren't having a discussion around net zero. We weren't talking about carbon negative. Just being neutral was something that was worth getting after. So we started from there. I want to share that in this presentation, it's going to be really fresh. There's going to be lots of pictures. I like to present from a 5th grade mindset because I think children seem to get it right away. And when given in that place, children also like to share. And so you'll see a lot. I think the collection of all the discussions today really comes around this key component right here, shared learning. And we have a name for that, and it's called Iki Alapono. And you'll see along the way from all of the slides of my consortium partners, you'll start to see Iki Alapono. And what that's doing is it's the bridge that connects all of us, the shared learning, the trade school, the nonprofits, the pipeline, going back to the schools, teaching the kids STEM. So lots of shared learning happening. We can't do it if we can't share. When we're sharing, we feel comfortable. When we're comfortable, we're confident. And most importantly, we're safe. And we want to be able to do that and show that to the children. That way, these platforms will be there for them. We talked about the bill earlier, so I'm not going to go through this. We thanked everybody earlier, so I'll just keep going. So my talking point is going to be carbon smart commodities. And what I learned from shared learning earlier with Vietnam was that they had a different term for it. It was called climate smart commodities. But yet, they're the same. So here we are, so different in our viewpoints and our perspectives from one of science and technology to community. But yet, here we are, very much alike in our understanding around something and our objectives to move forward. So for me, when I look at carbon smart commodities, because my company DIBS Hawaii, which stands just the military acronym for Dry Ice Blasting Service. So if you ever see, we got dibs on it. We got dibs on CO2 now. That's what we're working on, right? That does stand for dry ice blasting. And so because that's the nature of our business, of course that's a commodity, right? Without this incredible gas, carbon dioxide, which is being vilified, that it's just so horrible. It's just the perspective and the lens of it. And that when we look at it from a lens, from a commodity standpoint, we can really start to change, shape, and revision and reposition ourselves to do better practices. I think that's the key piece of what I want you to walk away from is we're pivoting to better practices. So that's dry ice right there. If you've never saw it in that form, that's 3 millimeter high density dry ice. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background around CO2. If you don't have it, it might make this presentation a little bit easier. It is the only gas that can exist in 3 phases at the same time. Right now, as I'm speaking, I'm exhaling carbon dioxide. This room is being filled with carbon dioxide through conversation, and we're completely okay with that. Another form of CO2 that we see is in our soda, our soft drinks. When I was up there having lunch, I was talking to Doug Adams, and I said, hey, take a look at this. Here you got some CO2 right here. We get that. And if that soda was flat, we wouldn't drink it. So it changes the way we view it. So that's in the vapor state. We store it in the liquid state. So when you take it, you compress it, you store it under pressure, and it's a liquid, okay? When we make the dry ice, it's a solid state. So you're taking that liquid, and when that liquid meets the atmosphere again, it starts to react incredibly quickly. At this point, it's pushed through a pelletizer, a die, and what you see is spaghetti coming out. This spaghetti that you see right here is negative 111 degrees Fahrenheit. Negative 111 degrees Fahrenheit. Imagine the thermal capacity in that. The amount of fossil fuels and energy to get something that cold. Incredible. This naturally stays in this state until it expires or sublimates. So CO2 is incredible that it's the only gas that can exist in 3 phases at the same time, which we call supercritical CO2. At which point, you learned a lot about that, Scott, from CarbFix, because they take the supercritical CO2 and they use that to inject it to bind into the limestone and turn into basically limestone and be stored away forever. So that's a little background about CO2. You have a little bit of understanding when we go into other presentations and where we come from when we say carbon smart commodities. So I kind of like this slide because it's challenging what we're looking at here in Hawaii and other places. So originally I had this, it was all animated, so you see things come in and we could play, we can ask questions. But import substitution is the greatest means for us to offset our carbon footprint. We import everything. 95% of what comes into Hawaii comes on a container, comes on a tractor trailer. The wheels are made of fossil fuels, made out of oil, petrochemicals. So everything part of the component to receiving our imports is connected to fossil fuels. So import substitution should be the hallmark of what we can do in Hawaii from a responsible standpoint. Okay? So if we look at that, well, that's my carbon footprint over there. Okay, well, what does net zero mean? We're going to hear a talking point about that. Well, what are these carbon credits? What are these carbon credits that are happening? If I focus on import substitution, if I pay attention to my carbon footprint, if I go towards net zero practices, how do I get a carbon credit for that? How does the state of Hawaii, in its effort to decarbonize and move to these models, how do we apply for a carbon credit as a state? These are great questions, and I hope you guys walk away asking this. How do we participate? Of course, carbon sequestration. I put that in black because this is something that is happening here already, and I think that it's worth paying attention to. And that's our native Hawaiian forest. That's the Ko'olau mountain range. That's the Waianae mountain range. And if you wake up in the morning and you see those clouds getting sucked into that mountain range, there's a reason for that. The reason why all that moisture is coming to that place is because there's carbon in the soil, because it's untouched, and because of that ancient practice of storing away our biomass and having it compost and carbon in the ground, we're seeing that attraction of the carbon in the air like a magnet get pulled into it. So I put that in black because carbon sequestration is happening here already. It's a different lens, and we've lost sight of that. That goes back to agriculture. So when we start focusing on agriculture, healthy soil systems, developing in that, biochar, some of the topics we're going to talk about, we can start to increase the carbon in our soil, start changing our landscape around food, and ultimately address food and energy resilience while we're doing with carbon smart commodities. So this is kind of a fun slide, my favorite slide actually out of my whole presentation. Okay, so food and energy resilience, I think that's the theme of what we have. I did take these pictures, so I think if my presentation isn't very good, at least my photography skills were not half bad. I have the picture of the volcano because there's a lot of CO2 being emitted from that. And to Scott, to your point, if we're at a point where we can start to do direct air capture in a place where we have energy like that, what an excellent landscape for us to start pulling CO2 from out of the air. So I want to go back and address that. I did this slide for you because when we had that discussion talking point, you're absolutely correct. We need to also at the same time focus on what we can do to pull CO2 out of the air. And I think by doing carbon negative fuels, we can get there a lot quicker. Next to it, we have the plants. The plants are actually the means, the mechanism to pull the CO2. So I want to take this back to a 5th grade level, and we want to be a lot like the plant. We want to be flexible. We want to be able to absorb. Our farmers are going to talk a lot about that, but that's why we're focusing. That's why we gave so much praise to our farmers, because they're on the forefront of carbon sequestration and carbon smart commodities. So what you see here is kind of my neck of the woods. This is really how I view the problem, and I have it really broken down pretty simply. In order for us to capture carbon, we have to have a tank to do so. So whoever owns the tank owns the opportunity. And Hawaii has plenty of containers. Everything comes in a container. What we don't have a lot of containers of are specialty tanks that have the ability to store carbon dioxide, this incredible gas in this phase. And so without that, we don't have the means to recover it because we have nowhere to store it. And if we don't have anywhere to store it, how do we transport it? So we focused on the basic principles here. So here we have the smokestack. Below that, you have a wet scrubber. Okay, so it's going to get pulled in, it's going to get cleaned, it's going to get scrubbed. You have 100-ton CO2 tank storage. So now that we cleaned it, we scrubbed it, we need to store it. Once we store it, how do we get it to our other locations? How do we get it to other destinations that CO2 is a complete luxury item? And I want to be clear when I say this, CO2 in the state of Hawaii, liquid CO2, is a complete luxury item. When was the last time anybody in this room, show of hands, was able to go to the store and buy dry ice? Put your hands up. I want to see. Anybody in this room buy dry ice in the last week? For ice cream? How many of you had ice cream at the beach or popsicles in your cooler for your kids on a hot day? How many of you have been at the beach and ate ice cream from your own cooler? Anybody? Mikey's probably the only guy who can because he takes dries from the job site and then they go freeze ice cream at their football games and whatnot. And everybody goes, "Where'd you do that?" He's just being modest because he's the only guy in here who could say that. But that's affecting Hawaiian lifestyle. That changes, that simple approach, that availability. It's a luxury item. What does that mean when it comes to disaster preparedness, emergency response, storms? What happens when the lights go out? What's the first thing that we're thinking of? We're thinking about saving our food, our perishables. We hook up our generators, and the first thing we plug into is our refrigerators. So there's incredible aspects around this carbon smart commodity that we very well know well, but we don't have access to it. So the big first piece of why we want to do this consortium is we want to address Hawaiian lifestyle. We want to benefit the community. We want to be able, so somebody from Hanamaui can go and get dry ice. They can go out to Costco, can do the long drive, but they can stay longer. They can get more business done. They can visit with more of their family members because they have a full understanding that the food and the energy that they spent to get those resources won't perish on the way back. That also impacts import substitution and our carbon footprint. So we got our tank. that stores the CO2 that we scrub. We got our liquid CO2 ISO container that's carrying food-grade CO2. And if we're dealing with agriculture, we better have food-grade CO2, right? It's our food. What we have next is a balloon, and we have a recovery system. This is the technology that I'm really into. So if we're going to be making dry ice, it takes 2.5 pounds of liquid CO2 to make 1 pound of dry ice, okay? That's very, very ineffective, very inefficient. So if we put it through that little machine on the right-hand side, that's a CO2 recovery system. It's really small. So as we're pelletizing the CO2 and making that, we recover the CO2. You see that balloon right above it? So we take that CO2 vapor, it's stored there. We then go back to the step we have there. This system on the bottom right takes that vapor and it reliquefies it so we can put it back into the tank. We don't have to scrub it because it's already food-grade CO2. So by doing that practice, we take the conversion ratio from 2.5 to 1 to 1.3 to 1. That's incredible, the amount of savings. Imagine the fuel savings and the import substitution of not burning fossil fuels to have all that tonnage of waste now repurposed. So we're doing this in our practice as we introduce CO2 dry ice into a market where it's a complete luxury item. So I think that was the challenge for us. How do we introduce this carbon smart commodity in such a way that we are being cognizant of our footprint, where our fuel comes from, the amount of energy that's required to make that process? So that's what CCSU really is. If you guys are wondering, okay, now I got a picture of it, I can see it. So carbon dioxide utilization, well, we talked about dry ice. That's dry ice. That's my hand. That was made in Pearl Harbor. We had that constructed back in 2016. So we were really pushing the envelope back then so that we could do things like support Red Hill, decontaminate. However, we can't clean with CO2 if we don't have CO2 to clean. Much like how Coke and Pepsi, you don't have a great soda if you don't have CO2 in it. So very important that we establish this third-party CO2 infrastructure and create a virtual terminal. That is utilization. So what really inspired me and to continue this work with the ag is this statement right here. And this is why I get so excited talking to kids, because we start talking from an engineer perspective and it gets really complicated, but the kids really got it best. And when they stated that the plants are really the ones who are providing this effort. And really at the end of the day, when it's raining CO2. And that's why the plants grow. That's why it's so successful. And that's why Mount Ka'ala and the ko'olaus are thriving and the clouds are there because of this statement right here. So it's a very, very beautiful thing. And so we have to do this work. We have to do this work, like Representative Lisa Martin said, for the future. She's very excited about that. So we talked about this, the third-party CO2 infrastructure. Just here were some of the things. SAF stands for Sustainable Aviation Fuel. I think that's very important in our effort to decarbonize. Soil revitalization, cold chain logistics, we touched upon that. Concrete mineralization, Representative Lisa Martin touched upon that. Cleaning and inspections, that's the dry ice business that we do. Environmental response, that would be like Red Hill, for example, being able to decontaminate without having to take the waste stream, without any secondary waste stream, and then have to use the fuel to dispose of that waste stream. Disaster preparedness, and then of course we touched upon Hawaiian lifestyle. And ultimately I put dibs at the bottom is because Hawaii wants to be able to say they have dibs on their own CO2. I think that's the goal that we want to have. We want to be able to say, hey, that's mine, I captured it, it's ours, take a look at it, how exciting. So we have technology partners that allow us to do this. I didn't invent it, I don't have any patents that say that we can do this. We have just great manufacturers who've been doing this work for a long time. And we want to be able to use those relationships and use those tools to advance our cause. And so this is what dry ice looks like in all its different phases. That is pure CO2, by the way, on the left-hand side. In all of its phases, you got blocks, you got slices, you got dust, you got a 3-millimeter high-density pellet. What you have on the right is what's so exciting, and that's the mobile dry ice production hub that CoalJet designed. It was inspired by the work that we did here in Pearl Harbor to make a remote location dry ice capacity. Now we have the ability to deploy dry ice via a container. What we're really good at, we can move containers anywhere. Now I can put one of these at port, I can put it at a power plant, put a CO2 tank, which you just saw. So you take a 20-foot container, take another container, that's a 40-foot container. You got another 10 feet for your tools, and now here we are, dry ice blasting, decarbonizing a process, cleaning without secondary waste stream, being able to bring dry ice to an environment, to Molokai, to a place where hunters can go and hunt and they can package their dry ice. The fishermen in Big Island can go and flash freeze their fish and send it off to other locations. Yeah, very exciting. Representative Lisa Martin talked about carbon smart concrete. This was a project that the state of Hawaii was running. That is Kapolei. And I think it's incredible that we were the tip of the spear in doing this effort. I do want to make mention that in our ability to do this application and continue to do this application, we have to have a steady stream of CO2 to do so. That means that you can't start a project if you don't have enough CO2 to fulfill the project all the way to its end. It's like a drink. You don't change the mixture. Okay? So once you start pouring this process, every pour has to be the same. You can't have CO2 one day and not have CO2 the next day. So if we're really going to hit these goals, we have to have the CO2 dedicated for those purposes. Okay? It's very important. So I want to be able to make sure that collectively, doesn't matter what island we're on, if we're pouring concrete over there, is there CO2 available to them to do these projects consistently? That's very important. And we'll slowly walk through that process. But this is very important. And how wonderful to see our CO2 sequestration in our visible infrastructure. So we might not be injecting it into the ground, but understand that we're injecting it into our infrastructure, Scott. So I think that this is where we get to meet in the middle of the road, where Hawaii might not be burying it in geological structures, but we can be storing it forever in our infrastructure. So I think that's a remarkable compromise. This just goes on to talk about, Lisa Martin mentioned this, concrete mineralization, pretty straightforward. I'll give you a couple seconds to read it. That is sequestration and utilization in the same statement. I want to be clear about that. Sequestration and utilization in the same statement. This is really what DIBS Hawaii does best. This is what we've been doing for the military, and that's decarbonizing industrial cleaning. So the Navy has a requirement that states that we have to use CO2 to clean ventilation systems, kitchens, galleys, and the reason for that is because it sanitizes, it's clean, there's no secondary waste stream, and it has a great ability to cut through grease because it's so cold. So next couple pieces are all going to be really about dry ice blasting. It is the nature of my business. I want people to be a little bit familiar with it. I just want to show you some before and afters and really just give you kinds of a taste of what utilization looks like in regards to our business model. There's going to be some excellent presentations on agriculture and hemp, and we'll let them do that. But I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse of some of the work we've done, the impacts of the work we've done, and what carbon dioxide utilization looks like from DIBS Hawaii. I like this picture right over here because it says a lot in this picture. When I look at it, the first thing I think of is safety. The second thing I look of is cleanliness. And then the third thing that I see over here is an opportunity. This picture is from Puna Geothermal Plant. It was under 150 days of acid rain when the lava flow took it over. They basically walked away from the plant, and were able to come back after 150, 60 days. We came back, we left Waianae, Hawaii, and we flew over there. We shipped all of our gear on a barge, and we took it into the lava field. We off-roaded into the lava field. There wasn't any power. We brought in our own power, our own generators, our own systems, and 3 of us lived there for 3 months in that area, and we cleaned every electrical contact point of corrosion so they could go back online. It was a wonderful project. And this was the first day when we started. We didn't know where to begin. So we just said, I said, well, let's make it clean to start. How about we just start with a really clean job site? And we went from there. And it was a wonderful journey, and we had a great time doing it. This was supposed to be animated, and each one came in. It was supposed to be a lot more fun. Sorry, it's not that much fun. Okay, so here's some before and afters. This is actually a ventilation on top of a surface craft. I don't get to share a lot of the pictures of the works that we do because we're in military installations and they don't really want us to take a look at it. But you can take a look at this. It's fine. So on the left-hand side this is where your air goes through. You can see it's disgusting. It's gross. They never clean it. About 30 seconds to a minute, that's what's on the right-hand side. That's the effects of using dry ice effectively to clean. No secondary waste stream, and we sanitized. 30 seconds to a minute to change the landscape around the air we breathe on a military surface craft. Remarkable. Imagine the impacts when we could start cleaning hotels, high-rises, mechanical rooms. How many buildings do you think we have everywhere that has a condition on the left-hand side that's not being addressed? I can tell you that CO2 has a solution to that. Here we got corrosion. This bottle was some exotic gas that came from, I don't know where it came from, but it was some exotic gas that was at the Puna geothermal plant, and they couldn't use it. Not having this gas would have put them back 3 months on their reporting. They had all the people there. They expected this to be there. Because of contaminants, they had to walk away, and they didn't know what to do. There was about 100 of these bottles that were going to do all their samplings. I said, why don't you guys bring by a couple of those bottles and we see if we can clean it for you? So they brought a couple by. Within 15 seconds, those are the results of the CO2 being able to come and clean the corrosion. Let me tell you that they cleaned every single bottle. That we weren't there to do that work. We just did it because it was a community action item, help them out. So this is how effective the cleaning is when we utilize technology and innovation and a little bit of common sense. This is a mechanical plate on a broiler. Probably pretty important information on that broiler plate right there if you needed to repair it. That's about 3 minutes worth of cleaning. You can see the effects of the CO2. There's no sand there. There's no grinding. That's just pure carbon dioxide being used to clean. Now you can read that plate. Now they can maybe go and fix that broiler or whatever component it is because they can see it. We have sensitive electrical equipment. You don't really want to get that wet. Being able to come in and use micro dust particles and clean at about 25 psi, we're able to achieve these results fairly quickly. So very effective once we're out there in the field. Terminals, high corrosion. This is the effects of the 150 days of acid rain. So electrical conductivity, resistance, that's the potential for a fire, flashover. You can see on the right, pure copper. Remarkably quick, incredibly effective. We went through and must have did about 100 of these. We were able to get those transformers back online. That's a transformer, by the way, inside of one. Okay, this is one of those great segue points over here in my presentation. You can see Ikialapono. This is actually the farm that we're going to be going to on Friday. So anybody who's participating on our huaka'i, this is Hawaiiana o Makaha. And I really like this slide because this is the inspiration behind the work that we're doing. Yeah, the kids, a lot of my ideas came from this farm over here. I want to give them credit that this place is responsible for a lot of these common sense approaches. So I hope that many of you can go to Hawaiiana Makaha on Friday and start to feel part of the innovation and what it means to be comfort and safe in our actions and be able to thrive. Yeah, this, I think everything that we want to do here is really captured in this picture. The family's happy, the plants are happy, the soil's there, and we're growing our own food. And we share it with the community. And we're going to be participating in part of that on Friday. So, okay, these are my last couple slides. We couldn't do this effort and this work without the support of my technological partners. I do want to thank Mr. Sidney Higa for doing the presentations today and running the computers. He did a great job. If you guys give him a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. Scott Glenn mentioned to you that Sidney Higa was in that meeting. Sidney actually set up that meeting. He goes, Scott Glenn's going to be at this place. Let's go over there and tackle him and tell him what we're doing. So we did that. It worked out, I guess. So thank you, Sidney. Alika Watts. So the three of us really love this work. We love to be innovative. We love technology. And because of our efforts, and we scrutinize technology, we're willing to put the screws to technology to make sure that Hawaii gets the best. Okay, I want to tell you, we spend years evaluating things before we even make mention of bringing them and then, of course, implementing them. So our platform wouldn't be possible without that level of scrutinization, that willingness to go deeper and farther than anyone else to find the best. Because I can tell you, for this island community, I want the best. I want the best technology. I want the best minds. And I want to be able to share that. We want to be able to share that experience with our community so our community knows that they're getting the best. I think it's very important. So, providing power and solutions. Well, we're doing carbon dioxide, we're making dry ice, we're bringing it to port. That's all exciting and well. We're going to be recovering it. Well, that all takes energy. And if we do that, but we're not paying attention to where energy comes from, tell you, Hawaii, very expensive for energy. So what's the cost to that? Can we do it? Is it practical? Does it make sense? Can we afford to go down this road? So if we're not in control of our own energy and our own fuel, how do we do it? Where does the power come from? What happens when the cost of power goes up rapidly? How do we bid? How do we sustain? These are the questions that we ask ourselves, that we challenge ourselves, we push ourselves. And so I'm excited to share that we have an answer to that. And the next presentation is going to give you a highlight and a preview to what is now, what is possible. So in order to recover carbon dioxide emissions from industrial processes, we need to first start with fuel and energy consumptions. We need to look at ourselves. So Scott, when you said that we're taking this effort to decarbonize, to go net zero by 2045, I'm challenged to do this effort by third quarter of 2023 in our own industrial practices. So I want to be able to have sites on the Big Island, on Oahu, where you can come and take a look at legislators, the community. You can come any day. It doesn't have to be a Tuesday or a Saturday. Come on a Wednesday. We'll be making dry ice. We'll be pulling the CO2. We'll be doing it with net zero carbon negative energy. We'll be supporting Hawaiian lifestyle. So that's at the hallmark of it. And the reason why I left this picture over here is because this just shows you new beginnings, new life, a new opportunity. When I see that magma, that glow, I see a new opportunity. I see a brand new take on something. And that's really the inspiration of what we're doing. We're pivoting. We're bringing new life and new energy to things that we knew, or we thought we knew. This is just kind of a scale that really just goes to showcase, wow, there's a lot of things that CO2 impacts. Wow, carbon smart commodities are kind of everywhere. It's a really simple slide, but I think what it does is it really normalizes this experience around carbon dioxide where people feel not normal about it. I don't really understand it, I don't know it, so I'm scared of it, so I'm going to make CO2 really bad. If we don't understand something, we start to challenge it, we start to distance ourselves, we start to create a landscape of indifference. I hope that this slide can bring a little bit of normalcy to carbon dioxide and this experience that you could say, okay, I've seen that before. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I can leave it up for a couple more seconds so you guys can just digest some of those things and see where you've experienced carbon dioxide in your life. And ultimately, at the forefront and the core language of DIBS Hawaii, but ultimately Ho'oulu, I'm going to say that all of our practices and the presentations after this presentation are going to be focused around these three words. Very important, these words. It's burned in my mind. And that's the ability to be agile, agility. That's our responsiveness, adaptability. How quickly can we adapt to the situation? We have our coal plant that's retiring tomorrow, 30 years. Well, tomorrow's the last day, right? What? Huh? September 1. Oh, I'm sorry, the ceremony for it closing is tomorrow. Okay. So we're going to have to adapt pretty quickly, right? So that's on the forefront. And most importantly, is it robust? We're out here isolated in the middle of the Pacific. Is it robust? Does it have the capacity? Is redundancy built in there? So we focus on all these things. All the consortium partners all understand this. This is Ike Alapono. This is shared learning. I want you to walk away from this, that we take on this type of attitude around complex problems. We will make it. We'll get out of this. We'll do it together. So I'm just so excited to be a part of this team, to be a partner of a consortium, to be a native Hawaiian resident, to be in this space because it's the people's place. Thank you. Thank you, Calvin, for the opportunity and really highlighting community and people coming forward to provide solutions. That's really at the hallmark and very inspirational into that. So I wanted to mahalo you for that, to keep championing that. And ultimately, our connection between hemp and dry ice and CO2. And I want you to leave this picture here. It'll be like the final slide in the next conversations. You're going to see a remarkable connection between these two images. I know they seem so different on this slide of like, what are they doing together? And we're going to allow the next conversations to really highlight and showcase on how hemp and CO2 both need each other. Yeah, like salt and pepper. They're both at the table at the same time. Doesn't matter. CO2 needs hemp. Hemp needs CO2. And we're just really excited to be in this journey and to showcase this for the state of Hawaii and the people of Hawaii, and ultimately be able to share this with the rest of the world. Thank you. I thought Alika's job is to like take the guest. Okay, so I'm really excited to do this. I apologize. I've been waiting for this opportunity all day. This wouldn't be possible. We wouldn't be able to even do this without wonderful innovators. And Mr. Tom Quinn traveled a long way. He's been out here with, how many days have you been here, Tom, with us? Couple weeks. And the commitments and things you're going to learn from this presentation will be absolutely remarkable. So a round of applause for our next presenter, Mr. Tom Quinn, eFuels.
I'm going to introduce something to you during this presentation that I did at Stanford University in 2018. And the reaction, it was the International Energy Conference. And I was invited by Rick Reese, one of the professors at Stanford University, that caught, the engineering that we were doing in this area, and said, we need to have you as our guest speaker. So I said, you sure you want me? Because we're going in a different path than what everybody else was doing. He goes, absolutely. So I will start off my presentation by saying when I presented it, and these were people from all over the world, it was first shock of what I'm about to tell you people and show you people. It was also some anger, because when you have a market like energy, which is $5 trillion, and you disrupt that market, people get angry, because their livelihood and the strength of their corporations rely on it, and we all know that. When you're fighting energy, I mean, that's a big monster to fight, all right? But the end word was they were excited, they were motivated, that they had, and I'm going to announce today, a renewable energy source, which is the largest in the world, that nobody knew about, existed. It's not only renewable, it's carbon negative, and it's free. And anybody can use it. And that's what I presented there. So where's my little clicker? Okay, so we're going to talk about carbon negative. Everybody's heard about carbon or carbon neutral, all right? And if you thought, okay, let's freeze it right now and we're neutral. We don't go backwards, we don't go forward. Does that really accomplish anything? It can't, all right? So we got to go carbon negative. We got to quickly reverse, what's going on in the energy and the planet, quickly. So, but let me give you my background first, so you know that I have been down this path before, and I want to tell everybody that, this is probably the first time you met me, but every one of you owns my technology, and I will walk you through it. If you ever played Nintendo Wii, I'm the inventor of the inertia graphics control system that I patented myself, which allowed the Nintendo Wii to capture human motion or a body movement of motion and interpret that on a graphical screen. And that was me. Now, you also have that when you go to Google Maps, Apple Maps, and you're driving your car, and you see as you're moving your car, the graphical screen is changing. That's me. All right? That's the inertia graphic control system. There are sensors in there that assist the GPS in positioning your vehicle on the map. Then I go back, I use it still all the time, and my wife says, didn't you learn that direction yet? No, I love going with these maps. So Novell in the 80s, those of you who may remember it, we pioneered the local area network. We pioneered, one of the biggest things we did was we mirrored micro computers so we can daisy chain them together to increase the efficiency of information. Now that today is known as the cloud, and that's what I pioneered when I was president of Novell, was that. And then that got the attention of Mr. Chairman Lee at Samsung in the 80s. And he asked me if I would come and help them start in San Jose, California, their computer division over there, which I did. Had a wonderful relationship with him. He has since passed away, but I started that organization. So I have been through this thing with Silicon Valley. I grew up with a lot of competitive startup geniuses. Steve Jobs, and one of them. Wozniak, another one of them. But that's my bio. So I took a look at the energy market starting in 2008. And what I found was very interesting. And I think we need to accept this when we understand the situation we're in right now with our planet, the cost of energy, and the deterioration of what we're seeing right now. What this says is, why is global warming, how does global warming exist? The major problem, one of them, in addition to burning hydrocarbons, we all know that, okay, is that the sun evolves around, for the next 5 billion years, a stellar evolution that is predicted to increase in brightness by about 6% every 1 billion years. But the important thing here is slowly increasing Earth's temperatures and boiling off of the ocean waters. That is happening at a rate of over 5 billion grams per second right now. And that means our sun is shrinking. It's not, in reality, it's not a renewable energy source. All right, granted, it's going to last a long time, but it's shrinking. And as the sun shrinks, the light becomes brighter and the heat intensifies. So now we have a problem that we can't fix, but we don't have to make it worse by digging and strip mining the planet and burning all the hydrocarbons in the planet and just stick it up into the atmosphere, right? I mean, we are really hurting this planet really bad. And, you know, I always say when Earth has enough of humans, it's going to get rid of us. So we got to behave, all right? And I hope you understand that what I'm getting at. So I was researching and I came across a new energy source, which I couldn't believe. I was studying a chart, and you know, there's only one reason, is it's been an egregious, what I call a major mistake from the science community that hasn't recognized it. And I'm going to show you what I saw back in 2008. This is considered by the U.S. Department of Energy as one of the most important annual charts. Very important chart. What this shows is it shows we have 100.2 quadrillionths of energy consumption in the United States. That's how much we consume. What's on here is all the energy sources that we use in the United States: solar, nuclear, hydro, wind, geothermal, gas, coal, biomass, petrol, okay? This is everything. Now what happens is, as you go to the right, you see the production of electrical power, and then you have all the other industries down here for transportation, what have you. But, and it's almost off the chart there, but I'll let you see this red arrow that I inserted there? It's almost 70% of the good energy. So over here is the raw energy that's coming in that we dig up into the planet. And it doesn't matter, renewables, you also have to dig for renewables. They don't grow on trees. So all these energy sources, along with coal and natural gas and all this other petroleum, they're all going down here. And guess what? Almost 70%, 65.5, is going up into the atmosphere. And the most biggest egregious mistake we made was we called it carbon. Now it has carbon in it, but what they failed to understand is the energy here that comes in is heated carbons. That's very important. Heat, under science and the thermal laws, which I'll get into, is mechanical energy. Nothing in the world that humans make, all right, they can't make it without heat, mechanical energy. When we eat food and we walk and we run, we're burning and rejecting energy that we got from the planet. We're no different from running, any of these electrical or fuel processing plants, okay? That's something we have to remember. Now, the other thing that I discovered, I researched what consumes more energy than anybody else in the industry. And I don't know if anybody knows that. Who do you think consumes the most energy in the world? I'll tell you. The fuel industry. Next, the power industry. They consume. So I'll give you an example. You fill up a brand new car with 3 gallons of fuel, okay? And you get in that car and you drive until you consume all that fuel in the car. And then once you stop, you analyze, where did that energy go? All right? That energy went out the tailpipe. 2/3 or up to 70% went out the tailpipe, the engine friction heat, and the radiator. And people say, well, I drive an electric vehicle. Okay, they also have a cooling system, and many people don't know that. There's only one purpose to have a cooling system in anything, is to reject heat. That is mechanical energy. So what I'm trying to, I surmised here, which shocked everybody, was the fact that the energy here is no different from the energy over there. Why are we throwing that mechanical heated energy into the atmosphere and always complain about it, but we never do anything? The simple technique is to take that over here and loop it back to here. It's perfectly good energy. And I hope everybody understands that. And I can take further questions tomorrow during the Q&A. So, if we listen to our previous scientists, now there's what we call in 5th and 6th grade, they actually teach this in elementary school. They teach the laws of thermodynamics. And if we adults had to listen to it, what it says is the first is on the law is energy cannot be created or destroyed, but can be transferred from one form to another, right? So that means we, on that other chart, going back, all right, remember this? We thought we destroyed this energy, so we called it waste. But in reality, it wasn't waste. It was good. Why? Because the laws tell us humans can't destroy energy. They can only transform it. That's very important to realize, okay? And the second law of thermodynamics says, hot things will cool unless you do something to stop them, right? So what the law, and this started in the 1500s. This is not something that was recent. These laws go back to the 1500s as they massaged them along the way. People were saying, they were studying energy. So we have made one egregious mistake is thinking that, all right, we're injecting carbon into the atmosphere. All right, that's not all we're injecting. We're rejecting heat, mechanical energy. Okay, so the next thing is, if you take that heat, right, and you use it again, instead of throwing it up in the atmosphere for mechanical energy to move an automobile to electrical power generators, right? That becomes carbon negative, because the point is right down here, and this came from the federal government, carbon negative means you remove more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere than you emit, okay? So that same car that I said you drove 3 gallons until it consumed it all, if you were utilizing that car rejected energy, it would go the same distance with 1 gallon versus 3 gallons, because now you used that rejected energy, all right? And that's where we're heading here. So what we have here is, I'm going to give you a shot of over here, is that we, e-fuel, over the course of the years, we combined a fuel plant. Now, the fuel that we can make any fuel carbon negative. We can make transportation fuels. We can make jet fuel. And we could also make hydrogen. For I know, because people are talking about hydrogen here. The problem with hydrogen is it's very expensive fuel, and the transportation of hydrogen is very dangerous to transport it. But with our technology, there's no need to transport it, and it's free. Because if you use rejected energy, all right, if you're producing power to the community and you're taking the heat from that generator and you're making hydrogen fuel, now that becomes a byproduct of a carbon negative hydrogen fuel, okay? That's very important. If we want to get into hydrogen, we have to solve it. And the fact that the efficiencies in our, what we call the rejected energy reactor system, is very small, which allows us to be portable. We can make hydrogen on demand, and by the way, we can make dry ice on demand, okay? Because now, with learning this that's been going on for 120 years, right? This very serious mistake we've made as a humanity, we can now take this power, we can take the carbon and the heat, and we can make additional energy at zero cost, and we can provide products like Kinoe was talking about. Now we have a free source of not only carbon, but we have a free source of energy. All right? And I'll be more than happy to get into that and deeper in tomorrow's discussion. Now, this is the sound of the engine running. And I believe we're going to stop that at one point where you'll be able to see. You can go back a little bit. Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Okay. This is actually the RER system working as a display model. Okay. So, oh, there you go. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So right over here is the exhaust port. If you notice, the exhaust port, which contains the CO2 and the heat, is going into a reactor. And that reactor separates the heat so you can make fuel right there. The fuel plant's right behind it. You don't have to show it, but there's a fuel plant right behind it. So what happens in this is we fill it, okay, with fuel, and then that fuel then we trap the rejected energy coming out, and we make more fuel with it. So now we're making 2/3 or up to 70% less fuel, right, than we put in. Now, does anybody catch what's going on there? If you implement this technology in a $5 trillion market, you wipe it out. Because for 120 years, we've been discarding this energy into our atmosphere, wrecking the planet, okay? And the worst part about it, and we don't talk about it enough, is we're strip mining this planet like it's a dead planet. And anybody that goes out and looks at what we're doing to our planet, and I hate to say it, but some countries in the Pacific are now using amphibious tractors under the ocean to dig out carbons, right? I mean, we've gotten to the stage now that we've depleted a lot of the cheap hydrocarbons on the top of the planet. Now we're going into the ocean for it. And are we expecting anything good to happen out of that? I don't think so. Just more death to the ocean, right? So, I want everybody to understand, and if you don't, I hope to have a chance to talk to you more as we proceed. Now, photosynthesis. People ask me, well, how do you, we term ourselves that we take carbon and we convert it into oxygen. And I've had PhDs and scientists, you can't do that. That's impossible. It can't happen. I said, wait a minute, let's go back to 5th grade again. In elementary school, we learned, what does photosynthesis do? Photosynthesis takes the carbon from the air, from our atmosphere, right? And it produces what? Sugar. And that process of taking carbon and producing sugar, okay, is the carbon negative, but it's also the only reason why any living thing on the planet exists, because of plants. Plants are critical to our life, and we have to really protect it. So when you talk about Hawaii, I know there's been a lot of discussions. I've talked with the group here from DIBS. They understand it. There's been depletion of the soil on these beautiful islands, one of the most fertile soils in the world, right here in the state of Hawaii. All right, but they have been, abused and abandoned. Okay, and one of the things I've learned recently from the folks here is that if you leave the land alone, it comes back. Right? What does that tell you? Well, the humans are destroying what we had a blessing from, to have, the ability to grow nice food and other types of plants and trees, oxygen, right? We need oxygen, okay? That's another thing. And this is also a statement. It shows you right, this right here, I got it from the federal government. It's the largest renewable energy source on the planet, right? And we've been ignoring it. No one's given attention to it. Instead, we go out, we build things, call them renewable, but this is the true renewable of what we need to be focusing on, okay? Now, this is another topic. What are we going to do without oil? People say, let's get rid of oil. Let's shut it down. You know what? We don't have to, because guess what? We're running out. People don't understand that. Most of all the major productions from the Middle East, the United States, to Russia are injecting water under the ground for these oil pumps. And if anybody in science understands what that means, is they don't have the pressure anymore to bring that oil from below the ground up to the surface. All right? That means we're running out of oil, and we're running out fast. When President Biden went to the Middle East and says, pump me more oil, they came back and said, we're at a limit. In fact, if anything, we're going to start reducing. And what happens, and what we're seeing today, is we're running out of oil. It's not because we want to get rid of oil. Oil is just running out. So it's one of those things, watch what you wish for, because it's going to happen whether we like it or not. All right? We got to get smart real fast and get fuel. And this is important. Nothing manufactured in the world goes without fuel. Fuel touches everything. Okay? Now, we believe in an organic fuel. All right? And we can make the fuels we need for aviation. We can make the fuels for transportation, for power generation. We can make them from all the three major industries. All right? But we got to get smart, and we got to get smart quick, because I'm telling you, it's going to get worse. And guess who became the largest corporation? It used to be Apple Computer. Now who is the largest corporation in the world? Armaco, Middle East Oil, right? Once we went into this energy crisis where everything shot up, it's because the demand is there, but the quantity, the volume isn't there. This is telling us a warning sign, danger, danger. Even if we wanted oil, we're not going to be able to get it to meet our growth in the future. So action has to be taken quickly and now. And so this is a slide that, this is what it looks like for mining for minerals, and it could be anything. Minerals could be in for lithium. It could be for anything, all right? But we're damaging the planet, all right? And nobody ever sees this, all right? I mean, it's just terrible what we're doing to it, all right? So what happens? What happens when eFuel implements this on Hawaii? We're going to implement this. Hawaii will be the first one and a major. We have an agreement between an annual production rate of the first systems to come there, 7 billion watts, okay? That's going to make a dent in Hawaii, okay? Very fast. But what happens is, what can we expect here, okay? We're going to push the cost of energy back to the 60s on Hawaii. Remember that. Exactly. This is a shot, obviously, from the 60s. Not only the power, but the fuel. You will have the lowest cost fuel in the United States, if not the world, when you implement this. Because guess what? We're going to use that rejected energy against the energy industry. It's a free weapon that's been at our disposal. We just haven't used it. Okay? So this is going to be a very exciting time for us, to watch this transition. And, it's really not a renewable energy product. What we're doing is we're just being smart. We're saying we're tired of wasting good energy, and we're going to use it. And we're going to use it against the power industry, because that means every time you use rejected energy, you're not taking more fuel, you're not taking more power to make that, the fuel to make the power, all right? It goes in reverse, all right? And that means you're going to see a major power reduction. So we did a little, with my chief technical officer, we did a little napkin at I think it was a Mexican restaurant not too long ago. And we said, all right, let's look at Hawaii. Let's look at the islands here. The islands are consuming about 9.5 trillion watts of energy, okay? It's a lot. It's a big number, okay? And so if you were to take on a biomass energy basis, it would take you about 6 million tons to go completely carbon negative on the islands, okay? Now, we may have got a math wrong there, but that's very close to what we can do, all right? So, and what better place to do it than with all this fertile soil? And as we've already talked about, we all know what carbon can do for our lands, okay? Like was mentioned, the dry ice, the baking sodas and products and all that other stuff is available to us by putting this technology to work. These are shots of eFuel's products. This is one, it's in Australia, South Wales, and this is our farming product where it takes helps the farmers water, and it captures the carbon and takes the carbon and puts it into the water, so it goes directly into the plants. This is a product that has been very popular through our years. It's called a microfueler. It's actually a fuel plant. It's a microfuel plant. And we've sold them all over the world. And that technology is the base technology that we're using to make the reactor. So we can produce fuel as we produce electrical power. So I already went through this with you in the feedstocks and stuff like that. And that's it. Thank you for my time.
Hello everyone, we will be resuming the program starting with presentations from Ohana Hui Ventures, PIAH, Friends of Waimanalo, Lei Foundation, and Hui Ho'olako for Hawaiian Initiatives. So please, for the presentations, the speakers, Scotty Wong, Zane DeMello, Scotty Reyes Moniz, Pomai Freitas, Charlotte Poe, please get ready. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's the last group coming. Am I loud enough back there? Good? All righty. Yeah, as most of you guys saw, I'm the video guy, so they ran out of people to talk, so they just asked us to come up and finish off today. So if you don't agree with what I say in my presentation today, just remember I'm just the video guy. You guys notice I am wearing an Olelo shirt. Disclaimer to my Olelo people, I'm not representing Olelo Community Media. I used to be on their board of their board, and you know, when you sit on boards, you get free T-shirts and stuff. So this was the only shirt that was clean. Oh, thank you.
I'll take that all day.
Okay. All right, let's get to it. But who I am representing, and let me just start off. For people that do know me from a while back, you know, and I just want to explain, we're not a big company, we're not a corporation, we're not a government agency. We're just a couple of Kanakas, a couple of local boys and women that are doing projects, doing a business. We're doing stuff that happen to have coincided with DIBS Hawaii and Ho'olu Holdings, and we created this consortium almost about a year ago now, and it just all kind of came together. So here we're at the Bioeconomy Forum. Thank you, Janice, and the powers that be here for having us. It's awesome, you know. Much aloha. And I got that little girl up there. She belongs to one of our affiliates. A mom and a husband, and they bring their kids to the farm where I'm going to talk about, and it's about the youth. You know, they're out there, they're studying. The parents are getting them to learn about soils and carbon now and CO2 sequestering. So it's starting with the kids, which is really great. But my company is Ohana Hui Ventures. We started about 2015, 2017, and we started off as a company looking for land to build Hawaii's first state-of-the-art film studio. I don't know if Uncle Calvin is in here, Representative Say, but he remembers when I used to run the union for the film industry here in Hawaii. And ended up when I left the film industry, we said, hey, well, let's go start a film studio because Hawaii needs one. So it's all about technology. But the thing I like to say is when we're looking for land and we're looking at 20, 30 acres of beautiful land to build a film studio, I couldn't see concreting that place and putting buildings on there. And then that kind of moved us into drone technology. I have a company that's part of OHV, which is called HK Robotics. HK Robotics was myself and some film guys that were going to use drones for filming, but we said, hey, let's use drones for finding unexploded ordnance. And Hawaii has a lot of unexploded ordnance on ag land, and that's what we wanted to do was find this ordnance, clear it, and get the Hawaiians back on the land, especially DHHL. So we actually have some prototypes of those drones, and now we're looking at using the drones for agriculture. Then we also have, with Scotty Reese and I, we've been dabbling in tourism for about 6, 7, 8 years. And we were doing like Hawaii eco tours, doing culture with the tourists long before it became cool during COVID. So that's one of our companies we still have under OHV. Then we got into agriculture a couple years ago. Started off with hops. We wanted to do fresh hops here to make beer. You know, we're still looking at that, but also it has medicinal purposes. Then from hops, we went to its cousin, industrial hemp. And with the hemp, we kind of foregone CBD. We didn't see any future in it, which was great because now we're going right to what it's for, industrial fibers and oils and biofuels. So that's where we're at on hops. Food production, because here in Hawaii, you start talking about doing bioethanol, biofuels, this and that, then people go, what about food? We need food. So We have food farmers. I got Chinese farmers. I got local farmers. Our farmers right now are actually, they grow thousands of pounds of food, and they're providing H Mart, which is one of the Korean markets here in Hawaii, and that's where my farmers are right now, is growing for H Mart and delivering. And the last thing I want to talk about, as far as the intro, sorry, long intro, Agribusiness Development Corporation, part of Department of Agriculture. We want to thank them for giving us land that nobody else wanted. It's fallow land. It's been fallow for 15, 20 plus years. There's abandoned cars on it. There's all kinds of issues. But as Hawaiians, when we applied for that land and none of the other big farmers wanted it, we said, yeah, for Hawaiians, we need Aina. We've been fighting for Aina. We've been holding up upside down flags for many, many years, and we got 400 acres up in Whitmore. And it was great going to the farm with Keone, because Keone brings a whole new energy and light to seeing this type of land that just, he sees energy, he sees potential, he sees healthy soils. He sees nature bringing back the Aina, and taking over. So anyway, Bioeconomies for Dummies is my talk today. Because how many of you in this room, besides all the smart people, you know who you are, knows what a bioeconomy is? Or knew what a bioeconomy was? Anybody didn't know? Raise your hand. Yeah, there you guys go. Perfect. Because that's me. I'm the dummy, just to make sure. I'm not calling anybody dummy. I put my picture up there. But I had to research and Google what a bioeconomy was. Because we're just local guys farming. Yep. So it's the utilize. Oh, you did? Oh, sorry. Thanks, Sydney. So a bioeconomy is utilizing agriculture to enhance carbon capturing, storage utilization, creating renewable fuels, renewable energy, value-added renewable products, energy, water, and water reuse in a holistic circular practice. And there's that, that graphic there. So it's pretty much everything you guys was hearing today. But what I saw in the first part of it is it's agriculture. It's not fossil fuels and oil, it's agriculture. It's what us guys are doing. So here's a graphic of like the smart guys put this together, and everywhere the bioeconomy can go, from plants to fuels to waste to non-food factory stuff, thermal conversion energy, it's all there. But we're going to do what Keone likes to say, is talk to you in like the 5th grade level, you know, because that's where I can understand this stuff better. So Ohana Hui Ventures, who are we, what are we doing? So thanks to the ADC and also DBED. DBED's here, or CBED, with Wayne Tom, that actually introduced us, said ADC's got land, let's go apply for it, you guys should go do it. That's his job. He brings nonprofits, for-profits together with government and creates that perfect storm, and he saw that in us a couple years ago. So Ohana Hui Ventures, first thing that people needed for this bioeconomy to work is land, Aina. So we got land, thank you ADC. Keaolala Farms is the name of our farms. It's 430 acres, ag land, 30-year lease, long enough for me. Fallow for 15 plus years, abandoned cars and invasive trees. Great stuff. So in this little collage, I like to show you guys pictures of, not I'm just talking about potentials or things we may do. It's things we're doing already and have been doing. This is the land that we have up there, a lot of overgrowth, a lot of fallow. We cleared roads. We got our Kanaka Hawaiian-owned businesses with heavy equipment, who's also our cattle guys. They came in, cleared the roads, cleared some space for us, moved some cars, getting rid of the abandoned cars, and we're really taking that land back and cleaning it up and making it, you know, better for us to do what we got to do in this bioeconomy. Another set of pictures here is some of the land that we did clear for test plots, finding and looking at that soil and how good that soil is. And from being overgrown to now it's looking like it's going to be a farm. And then the bottom right picture is cool because we're starting to find avocado trees and fruit trees that are inside all the bushes as we cleared the grass, and we were like, wow, look at this. It's a whole big avocado trees with about 100 avocados on it. Wow, what a benefit. Of course, we're going to sell that. So the next thing that we looked at as far as the bioeconomy's master plan that they've been working on, besides land, was water. So for us up at our farm, we got the water. We have a municipal water line from the Board of Water Supply. We got 2 irrigation ponds that we're going to reline, 2 2,500-gallon portable tanks. Now, atmospheric water generators. We're distributors here. I think my partner's inside the room too, where we have machines that can suck moisture out of the air and create fresh distilled water. And one of the machines we have does 300 gallons a day. It's better than nothing. But these are some of the technologies that we're using to get water on our land to grow our crops, because you need water for our crops. Rainfall and retaining moisture through healthy soils and biochar. The place where we're at, Keone pointed it out, which is really great, is we're up against the mountain where there's still forests. And we actually get some moisture and rain almost every night, at least a couple times a week. And if you just go down like a half mile down the road where there's these old Dole pineapple fields and sugarcane, it very rarely rains there. There's not much mist, but where we're at, because nature took it over, we have great moisture content up there. That's really good for us. And then we have some streams that we're going to try and tap into. So here's some pictures of the atmospheric water generators that we have. They're portable. We can put them on top of vehicles, tow them around the property with storage tanks, attach them straight to our drip lines, and we can hopefully run them off the power that Ho'olu Holdings is going to bring and with Tom's technology. Regenerative farming. That's another thing that's part of this bioeconomy. So regenerative farming is perfect for us because nature took over the farm that was once tilled. And what we're doing is we're doing the five principles of regenerative farming. Soil armor, keeping cover crops, diversity in there, not just food, not row cropping, but mix it up with fruits and trees and shrubs and ground cover. Continual live plant roots, keep roots in the ground, mix in some livestock integration, and also minimize soil disturbance, no till, no to less tilling. Here we got a handful of biochar. We got our cattle guys with their cows. And also you see right down there the hemp, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'll save that for Zane. So growing hemp on top of the fields is important for us because it's phytoremediation of the soils that maybe had monocropping for 50 to 100 years. But also the hemp is sequestering carbon as it grows. And then when we cut it down, we're going to use it for stuff. Climate smart commodities, which we'll talk about more. Our food crops right here. This is what we're growing up at our farms. And we have partner farms that are right down the road. So Asian vegetables, which we're supplying to H Mart right now. Polynesian voyaging foods, that's banana, kalo, uwala, those types of products. Fruit orchards, like we said, we found some fruit trees on the property, but we're also getting ready to do like a walking food garden filled with fruit trees. The meats with our cattle people. We have our bee master coming to the farm to do honey. Aquaponics is another thing that we're doing at our warehouse. It's also community classes that we're doing. And vertical growth systems, which I'll talk about in just a bit. So here's a picture of our farmers growing and harvesting our daikon. We got some of the biggest daikon. We're actually naming our farmer Mr. Daikon. Japanese daikon, Korean daikon. It's great. Coconut, banana, aquaponics, kuni pigs. One of my friends is bringing his pigs up. We're going to have a pig farm, cows, and mustard cabbage. Some more value added. These are what we can make from our farm that some of our fellow partner farmers are selling on the side of the road. And some are the potential dishes like the fruits, fresh fruits we can sell on the farm. And of course, you got the roasted pig. I mean, that's something we want to do when we start getting to agritourism, but it can just be our farmer's lunch. And then that bottom right down there, take a look at those vegetables. You're probably getting some of that for dinner tonight. Okay, vertical growth system. This is the future of where we want to go. Utilizing ADC warehouses up there that's been sitting empty for a while. We're looking at partnering with our local vertical experts here in town that are distributors, and we've talked to some of the guys that make this technology. We want to set up indoor grow spaces, mini mobile processing facilities, packing and cold storage is key, and feed fodder for livestock. So if you look at this next picture here, the one on the left is the entrance to a 40-foot shipping container that's growing lettuce and greens in there. Temperature control, the environment is controlled. It uses much less water. It recycles it. And the key thing about this, what is cool, is you can use CO2 infused water in there. Water that was infused with carbon that was captured, and you infuse it. And Keone, then we're talking about that, and some of the farms are using it already because you put the carbon in the water already, especially for these grow systems where they don't really see real sunlight. So that's something that we're looking at doing up in Whitmore. And there's a couple other things that you can grow in these indoor farms that is better to grow indoor than out in the field, like strawberries and lettuce, because you can control it. It's purely organic, no chemicals, and you can actually pack it up. And if we can do this indoor grow system right next to the potential Department of Education's kitchen they want to do up in Whitmore next to us, we can feed, thousands of students throughout the state. So talking about what we are doing and not just, dreaming about it, we've already set up and are starting to build a wash and pack system area. Cold storage over there, top right, is our cold storage that we have up there. We're already putting produce inside there. And also the bottom left is an example of an indoor processing facility that we've talked with the distributors, where you can put it into a shipping container and you can wash and pack and cut vegetables all on a mobile 40-foot and a 20-foot container, which is good because Keone had talked about being adaptable, mobile, and I'm a former military guy, former Marine, and I think I just remember that movie about improvise, adapt, and overcome, which matches up with Keone was saying. What we do as our consortium is we're really looking to be adaptable and agile. And that's what we're planning and have been planning is things that are mobile and adaptable. The other thing we're doing up with OHV is Korean natural farming. I know most of you guys understand Korean natural farming. So what we're doing is we're already got warehouse space to make the IMOs. We have 2 of them there. I mean, we're just getting ready to clear it out, wash it, and start producing our own Korean natural farming inputs and IMOs probably within the next month. We got some guys that are going to start that. And that can replace the chemicals that are being shipped in, and it also has been proven to reduce costs for our farmers. You're not buying all that expensive chemicals that get shipped in, so we're already starting import substitution by doing Korean natural farming right on our own property. Okay, biofeed for biofuels. So for one, you've seen our farm, there's a lot of green waste. So green waste, right off the bat, using the technology that Tom them have, can automatically be used to create biofuels. What we're doing is we're really focusing on industrial hemp, how Keone talked about earlier. And I'm going to leave a lot of that for Zane to talk about. But we've done some test grows in our industrial hemp to see which strains work good, what the soil looks like. And actually in the bottom right there is like a picture of pure hemp seed oil that I cold pressed the other night from seeds. And, they say it's good for salad dressing, has a lot of omega, it's very healthy for you. But they also say you can pour that into a diesel engine and it can run your tractor. I just haven't found anybody to volunteer their diesel vehicle yet. But soon, I have a jar of it. I'm going to pour it in somebody's vehicle soon to test it. I only saw it on YouTube, but I want to see it from my own eyes. But that's how we're taking hemp to biodiesel. I mean, I made it in well, not my house, but my friend had a cold press machine, and I took the opportunity to press some seeds. Okay, so biofeed partners and distribution. You guys already heard from Tom. We met Floyd. You got Ho'olu Holdings. You got Keone, and there's a whole consortium of people that are our distribution. So what we do at Ohana Hui Ventures, our main job right now is to grow industrial hemp. Now we're not, it's a circular, holistic bioeconomy, so we're not stuck with hemp only. If there's other stuff that Keone then want us to grow, we're going to grow it. Because if there's something that we could put in these machines and make diesel and ethanol, that's what we do as farmers and agriculture that's looking beyond just growing groceries and selling it on the side of the road or trying to get an H-Mart. We need to be adaptable. And this is what we're looking at for biofeed and how we work with our partners in this consortium. Here's another graphic. I'm keeping it simple because I like pictures and pop-up books, So biomass source, conversion process goes to bioenergy and bioproducts. Pretty simple. I think even my son can recognize what we're doing. Okay, bioproducts or climate smart commodities as the USDA calls it. So we're just looking at what we can do as bioproducts from hemp. There you have hemp wood, some hemp fiber. I'll let Zane talk about that, hempcrete. And we got Haleiwa whiskey down there. We'd like to work with those guys for making alcohol because there's always a good after party, when you got the liquor guy there. And biochar. But I just wanted to say that the USDA in January or February of this year had put out a grant that we went for. We actually applied through our nonprofit partner, Friends of Waimanalo, who Scotty will talk about that. They're giving $100 million to historically underserved farmers. That's me. That's us. To show the USDA who is sequestering carbon and who is turning that carbon into climate smart commodities, which is like dry ice, who is taking infused water and putting it on top of produce, who's making biochar, and who's teaching other local underserved farmers, small guys, how to do this. So that's us. I think USD wrote that for us. So we actually applied. Hopefully the USDA will choose us. But I don't know. I don't know the guy there who I can call. Do brother kind. Hey, plain lunch, poor cash. But it fit what we're doing. And you can look it up. Climate Smart Partnerships, USDA grant. You read it. It's exactly what we're doing here with our partners and our consortium. Where are we at? Okay, almost done, guys. Workforce and growing people. You've heard about that. We've talked about it with Keone them. Scotty Reese is going to talk more about what we're doing specifically, but with one of the things in the bioeconomy master plan that the smart guys all talked about was, where's the labor force going to come from? Where's the workforce going to come from? Well, we got them. We're sitting right here in the room. We got guys, and Scotty will talk about guys that we got, guys that we can train, but us local guys need jobs. And a lot of the jobs, are taken up or they're disappearing, like people don't want tourism. When people say they don't want tourism, all I can see is my friends losing their jobs. But, this is where we're looking for more jobs, different industries for our local people, and especially our youth. Because my son still needs a full-time job, and so I want to make sure that I hook him up, But here's some of the people that we got that we've been training for the last several years, and Scotty Reese Moniz will talk about it more. Certifications and stuff that we're doing up at the ADC for forklift and stuff. Okay, agri-education. People call it agritourism. You put tourism, it's almost as bad in the last couple of years of people saying hemp. What, hemp? Oh, you smoke that stuff? You know, tourism, oh, it's bad. We got to stop tourism, lessen it. So I'm calling it agri-education because it's not just for tourists, it's for locals and visitors. So our farm, in the end, is going to be an agritourism or agri-education spot because we're already training locals from the area about farming, about carbon, about what we're doing. And eventually we're going to open up to the visitors that come to Hawaii from wherever in the world to show them exactly what we're doing so we can recreate this in different places. And community and culture, we'll have Scotty talk about that also because we've been dealing with the community in our nonprofit work. And also, without culture, you do not have agriculture. So it's very important for us people, indigenous peoples, to be involved in this, to make sure that not only are we farming and doing CO2 sequestering, but you got to add the culture in there along with it. Okay, and that's the last of my slide. I sped through that so we can get to these guys over here. And thank you guys very much. You want to go, Scotty? Okay, so I'm going to introduce Scotty Reese Moniz right here, President and Executive Director of Friends of Waimanalo, a 501c3 nonprofit, and also the guy who makes the best beef stew in Waimanalo, because the meat melts in your mouth.
Aloha, everybody. Aloha. First of all, I want to thank everybody here for taking the time and spending the little extra afternoon with us guys, and Keone and Sydney and Alika for help putting this together. We also want to thank Wayne Tom and our brother Chris Barron out there who's been actually putting us together. Scotty Wong and myself been knowing each other since we were kids. Our families known each other because we all used to do outrigger canoe paddling. However, he was from the movie industry and I was one of the workers on the movie industry, and we always share a lot of our ideas together. And then when we came to the seabed or D-bed, Wayne Tom, he said, you guys should be working together. You guys got a power pack team and some vision that can actually help some of the community out here. So as we're going out there, from 2017, we're doing workforce development. And we've been helping out the men and women in transition. We've been helping out the men and women in Hawaiian homestead communities, as well as the community itself. So we go out there and guarantee the people who come through our program, which we call the passport, that they can get a interview, not a job, an interview. The last part they need to do is to convince the person across the table that they are worthy of their job. Our position as we do the nonprofit is to go out there and uplift each and every one of the members that come to our program, and we ask them for a little monetary investment. And it's $50 they put into the program. Once they finish our passport program, we give them the $50 back. Many of them do Aloha Forward. They give their money to the next student. So we have been doing great things in this program. One of the great examples I like to share is that we had 30 students or adults in 3 different locations, and 90 students passed, 100% passed. That was our greatest one. 45 of them went into the, thank you. 45 of them went into the Carpenters Union, and some of those people who were in the program were workers already. And we didn't know that some of the certifications that we gave them an increase in pay or a job movement upwards. So we realized how important this is. And our goal is to uplift every one of the people here in Hawaii is by giving them the opportunity to survive in Hawaii. We want them to be making $80,000 a year, $70,000 a year. And we want to bring in the different location of people from every place. Scotty Wong and myself been kind of like one energy that we've been attracting great people around us. And we're blessed with people like Ho'olu and Dibs Hawaii and my nephew here, Zane, and everyone else here. But we've been excited about our mission. So as we uplift the community and helping them to get jobs, we have partnered with many of the unions out there. Not only the unions, we've been partnering with the private sector. Our main goal is to get these people into work. But now, as we partnering with Dibs Hawaii and the farmers, we're creating new industries. The industry is from the passport we had, for example, is forklift, CDL, OSHA 10, CPR. Those are the great things that gives you a better quality resume when you go in front of the people. So as we go in the community now, that since we partnered in this direction, these are the things that we get you through the door. Now with the farming, it's a new type of farmer. It is not always the one that digs from the old days. It is one person pressing a button and a machine for indoor farming comes out. 1 acre can produce almost 100 acres of indoor farming. Fodder feed, industrial hemp. The things we can do with a smaller space is increasing the yield with the great things of technology can do right here. So we're partnership, we're educating the new type of worker. The worker need to know how to run to make a fodder feed, how to work with indoor farming, how to do business partnership with the hotels, do partnerships with the businesses in Chinatown as we're doing this farming. So this relationship we have built, we're building a network. For example, Chris Barron is a numbers guy who actually likes to share his excitement. And he told me, and Scotty Wong, as we was talking at one of the restaurants that Scotty Wong always turns me on to go eat, and then he said, for every time we do this, it will affect this pebble of this industry that we're touching will affect 7,000 people directly or indirectly with jobs. That's huge. And we got almost 5 different companies here. I'm only talking about the one. So imagine if we do this industry of helping to uplift, we're excited to bring this kind of technology to every single island and every one of the people here and outside of the islands. So we're excited to sharing this, uplifting everybody on top of what we're doing. We're not here to compete. We're here to work together. So we have no problem in sharing everything we have. Because the things that we have, that Scotty has, and Zane has, and Keone has, it is not that it's unique, it is not everybody willing to do it. But we feel that now with this partnership, we can do it. And I think we have a great team around us. So I'm very appreciative of everybody here. Thank you.
Can I stand up? Can I stand up? All right. Aloha, everybody. I just have to stand up and bring a little bit of energy in. My name is Zane DiMello. I'm from Kona, Mokuake'awe. And I just want to thank everybody for hosting us here and for your attention. Is my slideshow up? Let's get that. All right, so my presentation today is Hemp for a Thriving Hawaii. Hemp as a cornerstone of a thriving Hawaii bioeconomy. So here in my hand, I think is a major key to a thrivable Hawaii bioeconomy. This is just raw hemp from the bale. So recently I've been doing a lot of work in trialing hemp varieties that'll work here in Hawaii for a bunch of different uses, from building materials to our material that'll end up in our e-fuelers. So this is, these are some photos of our initial trials that we've done up at Keolala Farms. So in the mission of hemp farming, I think we just need to look at the problems and address the issues that we face as an agricultural community in Hawaii. So one of the problems that we have is just like the efficient use of the broad acre agricultural lands. Right now, we have so much fallow land that is exposed to the sun that is baking the microbes and basically degrading our soils. The hemp can definitely assist in the remediation of the soil just by covering the soil and protecting it as a shield from the wind and the sun, which degrades the soil.
So yeah, we need to regenerate the soil to optimize its performance so that when we do go in with produce production, we're actually producing healthy food that acts as medicine. If it's not if the soils are not performing to produce the highest quality food, we can't have a conversation about food as medicine. We also need diversified agricultural systems, and in that I mean right now we're working with a lot of broad acre produce production, but we don't really have a stable commodity crop industry here in Hawaii. So we're not able to take on large pieces of land and work them with a limited amount of labor input. And as we all know, all the farmers here know, one of the biggest problems in agriculture is finding people. So if we're able to set up systems that take less labor and actually have positive impacts on the ecology, then that's a win-win right there. We also, thank you. We also need livestock inputs. We're like at a huge, right now we import a lot of our livestock inputs. So looking at hemp, looking at using hemp fiber as a straw for animal bedding, using the grain as feed, and then setting up forage systems where we can feed animals young hemp crops, I think is a great way for us to plug hemp into the system and make our food systems actually operate a lot more efficiently. We also need sustainable Hawaii-made building materials. That's a huge issue right now, is our reliance on imported building materials. And if we can substitute some of our building materials with material that's grown in Hawaii, that'll be a huge impact in terms of our agricultural efficiency and our use of our land. So recently I went to Kansas to go to a open house for a company that set up decortication and hemp processing for their region. And they started with 20 acres, but this year they've contracted 1,000 acres for decortication and herd production. Now the herd fiber from the hemp is what it takes to make building materials like this, like hempcrete. So at the open house, I was able to make a hempcrete sample block, and we also worked on a building project, just a small build that ended up, it was just a nice demo in terms of how to do building with the hemp. And then we also need just new career opportunities for young people in Hawaii. I know earlier we talked about how young people don't want to farm. I think a lot of young people do want to farm, but we don't want to be, necessarily the day-to-day grinding in the field worker. We want to be able to innovate the systems so that the work is easier. And I think that because we're from Hawaii and we understand the natural systems of this place, we need to trust in kind of the wisdom and the mana'o of our ancestors and translate that into new agricultural systems where we're actually living a cultured life that we can be proud of. That's another big part of working in agriculture. You have to be proud of your work. And when it's just a nonstop grind, it can be a little bit defeating. So we need to envision a new future for young people in agriculture. All right, so Kealaula Farms, what we're doing, I know we've talked about Kealaula Farms a lot, but we are a farming consortium, so I'm just, as a hemp farmer, a small part of the puzzle. We're working on the hemp production for regenerating the land that we're on. Right now, I mean, if we look at red dirt, you don't go in the forest and find red dirt. Red dirt is basically a result of the oxidation of our soils. So we're looking to reduce all of that oxidized material and create a more fertile soil. So yeah, we're working on regenerating the soil. We would like to set up a centralized hemp processing facility up in Wahiawa where we're able to process and decorticate material so that we can make hurd for hempcrete. We're also looking to, through that, we're looking to create opportunities for import substitution of things like insulation, stucco, and other building materials, and then create jobs, and then create new farming methods that incorporate things like livestock, multi-crop rotations, and create different products out of the same acre of land. So our plan is to use the hemp along with our e-fuelers to capture that carbon and turn it into energy. We're looking to regenerate brownfields, fields that are polluted, and also degraded soils. And we're looking to, basically, in the future, create a system where we can create a textile market. Textiles are a little bit down the road because we're going to have a lot of volume for us to create the textile industry. But if we start with the fuel for the e-fuelers and the building materials, I think that'll kind of pave the way for us to go into textiles and eventually bioplastics, which are two huge things that I think that will feed into the import substitution conversation. And yeah, on the far right over there, you can see me. That's the little building that we made in our in the little hempcrete construction workshop in Great Bend, Kansas. And then this is in the middle there is like a hempcrete home that's been tamped. So it's basically a framed home with a formed hempcrete around it. So the thing to finish that would be like a layer of stucco on the outside, and that thing is almost done. And then these are some prefabricated panels. I think there's a lot of potential for building with prefabricated materials that are just easy to apply on the work site, or on the job site, excuse me. So I'd just like to leave everybody with one thought, I'm just a Kona boy. I'm from Kona, and I never dreamed I'd be on the stage talking about like my passion to you guys. And if we think about the future of Hawaii in a bioeconomy, there are a lot of things that we cannot imagine will be possible in the future. So I just want to remind everybody to remain open-minded to new ideas and try to innovate, these processes, and let's move forward with open minds and open hearts. All right, mahalo. Thank you. Sorry, guys. I actually have this material. I never even shared it with you, but I am really excited about it. This is hempsolation. It's an insulation product that we can use for padding, insulation on homes. It works really good for cushions, and it's antimicrobial. It lasts a very long time. It's a lot more durable than a lot of the poly products that we deal with in our cushions and pillows and products that we deal with like in our homes. And it's a lot more friendly to the environment when we're done using it. This is actually a sample of hemp hurd. If you guys want to come check out the material, you guys can and touch it, come see me. This is some hempcrete that's fresh out of the cement mixer. As you can see, if you don't tamp it, it's a little bit brittle. But after tamping this material is rock solid, and it's only going to petrify over time, so it gets even stronger. And then this is just a little craft basket made with hemp rope and and hemp fiber. So right on. Thank you, guys. Mahalo.
You have a question? Wow,
we got a question.
First question. Comment.
I think one of the things you just talked about is the biochar in Hawaii.
Yes.
Biochar is Hawaii's in front to produce biochar. because I learned the biochar in Hawaii 10 years ago. And we developed the biochar in Mekong Delta and Central Vietnam, and very successful.
Yes.
Yeah, from the rice husk, from the corn husk and other things, and it's very useful in the Central Vietnam and in Mekong Delta. And the biochar is very useful in Vietnam, and we learned the biochar first in the Big Island. So I think we can mention the biochar is Hawaii and the Big Island in front of the biochar production in the world, I think.
Awesome. Yes. I think we're going to have our next presentations on biochar, no?
Yeah, with the Big Island guy with biochar, please come forward.
Yes, let's do it, guys. Mahalo.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I think we just kick it out so we can get across the street. I just want to, as Pomai makes his way up here, is Pomai? Yeah. So what we want to do before we walk off this stage is that you heard what Ohana Hui Ventures does with its family of companies within the company, but we're always partnering with other farmers in Hawaii that want to do the same thing. It's not a vertically integrated thing we're doing. What we're trying to do is replicate and duplicate this for all the other small farmers throughout the state and hopefully the Pacific to do this same thing. Because the more that we all do this, the better, because not all of us can build a multi-million-dollar facility in one place, but if we got 1,000 of these little operations going on, doing the same thing, hey, the better for all of us. We're part of that bioeconomy. But thank you.
Being with Scotty is just absolutely incredible. A round of applause for our farmers. They really brought light to the presentation. You do, your haircut looks wonderful too, by the way. I really like that. Scotty and I are like salt and pepper. We're always at the table together. You don't have to use the salt or the pepper, but we'll always be there together. We always support each other. I want to introduce our next presenters from the Big Island. Another nonprofit that's doing excellent work. As Scotty mentioned, we integrate quickly, swiftly. We go back to agility, adaptability, and robustness. And so without further ado, I wanted to introduce Mr. Pomai Freitas and Hui Ho'olako for Hawaiian Initiatives. Round of applause for them, please.
So how's it, everybody? My name is Pomai Freitas. I'm from the Big Island of Hawaii. Born and raised in Hilo. I started working at the biochar plant that he loves so much. I started working at the biochar plant, and one of our projects was to find alternate sources of biochar. So, being that the Big Island, we had an invasive plant. It's called gorse. It's taking over the mountain of Mauna Kea. There's over 20,000 acres of gorse. We found out that using gorse makes pretty good biochar, but it also makes good animal feed. So with turning that and a couple other byproducts on the Big Island, we were able to make an animal feed that is so high in protein that cows, pigs, horses, sheep, goats, they could all survive. So with that being said, we ended up finding out there was a feed mill built on our island that basically went unused. Nobody used it. So we got in touch with the owners of the feed mill, which is Hawaii Pacific University. Working with them, we're putting together a program to use the feed mill. We're partnering with the County of Hawaii, Department of Hawaiian Homelands, University of Hawaii. Our partner Symbrosia, they'll get into all the good stuff with you in a little bit. They're the brains behind the operation. So yeah, we found out that we can make animal feed. And with animal feed being during the pandemic, we found out that going into the pandemic, we had 97 hog farms on the Big Island. Coming out of the pandemic, just surviving today, we have 27. And 27 hog farms aren't even 100% operational. Because of the pandemic and food supply shortage for all the hog farms, families lost all their livelihoods. Because they lost their livelihoods, no food on the table. So we decided to see what we can do to help these farmers. This is a 100% community-based. We're gonna make sure that the farmers and ranchers on the island get taken care of first before anything else happens. We don't wanna see any of these farmers that work their whole lives to supply us with feed, with subsistence, just for them to lose everything they got because of the pandemic. So besides that, I'll let the two geniuses behind the whole trials go ahead, and we're running our first trial. We're running a trial on pigs, and Dr. Nick is from UH Hilo. He'll explain to you on how our trials are going to go.
Aloha. I gotta calibrate here where to sit. Hello, my name's Nick Kruger. Yeah. Wow, what an introduction to live up to. God, multiple genius. Anyway, my folks would disagree with you. Yeah, I'm an instructor of integrated crop livestock systems at University of Hawaii at Hilo. I have been really excited about this project since Pomai brought it up to me. The largest issue facing really any aspect of livestock production out here throughout the state really is feed, right? It's well over half, many times well over 60% of an operation's cost, right? And gorse provides a really interesting double-bladed kind of solution, right? Has anyone here had much first-hand experience with gorse? Yeah, ooh, yeah, oh, wow, 12, 15, 20-foot canopies of this kind of woody perennial plant that has very large thorns with very small thorns between them, right? We've got a lot of we've got a lot of it occurring in on the windward side of Mauna Kea, the lee and windward side of Haleakala, in a lot of actually our existing cattle pastures, right? So not only are we seeing a lot of our forage grasses that have been used throughout the islands for decades getting choked out at the expense of this thorny shrub, right? And we're losing arable land for cattle production. And so it's a problem in and of itself. I've worked with a number of ranches that have full-time staff solely focused on taking out gorse, right? They operate bulldozers daily, right? And so it's already being cleared in a number of situations. And so to be able to have an opportunity that would be able to take the material, right, of clearing out this invasive plant and utilizing it for livestock feed is a really great goal. And again, it's looking pretty promising. The nutritional value of gorse can vary greatly, right? It can have protein contents relative to alfalfa, right? So if I have any other animal folks out here, that ought to ring a bell. That's not all the time, right? But it can exist, right? Even as a component of a livestock feed, right now at this point, we'll take anything we can get to get any more viable animal feed out here. So as Pomai mentioned, we're working on getting a performance trial with swine first, right, where gorse is going to be the major ingredient of a formulated ration. We're looking to put a study together at Hilo in our swine facilities to compare how rapidly pigs grow under this pelletized formulated ration of gorse next to our commercial standards of corn and soybean. Swine would not be the only livestock species that would benefit from gorse being used as a livestock feed. Cattle, sheep and goats, poultry, all of these industries are really have been in a downhill trajectory over the last few decades. And a big reason for that downfall is the continued lack of locally available feedstuffs and the increasing cost of transporting commercial standardized feedstuffs. So really exciting stuff. We'll see how fast those pigs grow, of course, right? But exciting stuff. I'm going to pass it over to Alexia here.
Thanks, Dr. Nick. Thanks, Pomai. Aloha kako. My name is Alexia Akbai. I'm the CEO and founder of Symbrosia. I am not in the pig industry directly, but I grow seaweed, limu kohu, at the Nelha facility in Kona, Hawaii. And we've been growing this seaweed crop for the past 3 years as a livestock feed additive. It's a red macroalgae for the purpose of climate-smart commodities. When you include this seaweed into the diet of cattle at a very small percentage of their diet, 0.5%, it reduces their methane emissions, the major source of greenhouse gases from growing cattle, by over 80% in a commercial setting. And so about a year ago, I met Pomai at an open house at the feed mill, and we quickly connected around the potential for the seaweed to be part of this feed formulation. When you get involved in the agriculture industry in Hawaii, you quickly realized how essential and critical food security and food sovereignty is to sustaining our population and the health of our community. And so together we're working to push these two initiatives forward, where we're decarbonizing the livestock industry with the seaweed product that we're growing, and then we're also working to provide a local sustainable input, or a reliable source of feed. In addition to being part of a feed pellet, we've done a lot of innovation and research around macroalgae and seaweed production in the state. For every kilogram of seaweed that we produce, we reduce 9 kilograms equivalent of carbon dioxide through that conversion to methane reduction. So it's probably one of the most sustainable seaweed or inputs that you could grow. And additionally, we work with a fish farm locally next to us to use their fish waste, the poop essentially from their fish, as fertilizer for our seaweed. And so we've really centralized circular production in the creation of our product as well. We're really excited to see where this project goes with Pomai. There's a lot of potential and interest in the market. We're working with Parker Ranch and the reemerging dairy farms on the north side of Hawaii Island to implement this into new products that would be available within the state. Thank you.
That's fine. No, I think, for rearing the biochar for livestock, even in, Kona or Big Island, I think it's a very huge potential for livestock in the Big Island. So when we use the biochar, so there are two, the benefit options. One thing is, the low release carbon dioxide in the land, and also good for the land. The second one, if you use the very small percentage of the biochar in the feed for, the livestock, for example, for cattle, of course they reduce the methane release in the stock. Is too much, so that understand. You are so well. So then the capture the twice benefit One thing is, reduce the carbon dioxide, slowly release in the land. The second one is reduce the methane in the cattle stomach. So of course, we need to research more. But very small percentage, 1% or 2% in the feed. I think this is the progress, and I think that how I can do this, because Hawaii is a huge potential for the the cattle and for the livestock. I think. So I think this I think it's we should tax this from my perspective. Thank you.
Watching everybody sit down here and be comfortable, I think I'm going to do the last presentation here. I regret to say that my very good friend Charlotte Poi, founder of Lay Foundation, wasn't able to attend today, and we really wanted her presentation is focused around growing people, and shared learning starts in a place of growing people. And so I will be presenting her presentation. So thank you. Let's go ahead and begin. Did you, Okay. Okay. So here we go again, back to our consortium. That's something that we really focused on. Iki Alapono is something that Shar and I really came together around this discussion around the CCSU consortium. Charlotte Poi, a little bit of background on Shar. She is, Ms. Charlotte Poi is the Madam Chairperson of our Waianae Neighborhood Board. She is an incredible community servant. What she offers community is engagement, growing people, empowering communities through literacy, meaningful engagement, and experiential learning. That's Aina-based learning. And what I like to tell Shar that she's incredible at enrolling people to be part of something. And that's really what we did here in the CCSU consortium is we enrolled each other. We believed in each other. And so by doing so, we're able to perform with one another. And I think you see these results as a part of that. We left the plane of competitiveness and we moved into a space of cooperative planning. Yeah, so we're now in a place of cooperation. So what I really liked about today's event is really these slides that we put together and actually experiencing and watching the presentations from Vietnam, from South Korea, the Zoom presentations, the collections of technology, innovation, carbon, leadership. We had incredible representation from our legislators, the passing of 2 bills. Pomai didn't mention his bill, House Bill 1179, was also signed by the governor. We have Senator Ocasio here, was incredible at championing that aspect and the work of the Big Island. And so he didn't mention that, but I want to make mention that that was incredible work of community and legislators working together with the private sector and the nonprofits to come together to solve very complex problems. These are incredibly complex problems, and yet they were so easily overcome because of cooperation, Iki Alapono, shared learning. Very important, the humility that we experience in this. So as I go through this presentation, I give it with much humility in that by working together, yeah, pupukahi I holomua, only by being together and paddling in the same direction at the same pace are we truly able to move forward together. Holomua. So what we have here today in this discussion alone in this 8th annual bioeconomy was we had the level of engagement, enrollment from learners, shared learning, the doers, the Scotty Wongs, the Scotty Rays Moniz, the Zanes who are out there, the excellent work that you guys are doing in Vietnam, pushing the envelope in regards to renewable energy, actually extraordinary, very inspiring, the level of commitment to getting to a place of hydrogen, to moving to a platform of net zero and changing the dynamics of our energy landscape, extraordinary. We are inspired. to the decision makers, our legislators who are here. Scott Glenn, Governor Ige came here, the leadership that took place to come in and make a stance to be carbon negative and net zero by 2045. What an ambitious goal, and how wonderful that we are the tip of the spear to be doing this effort. Of course, then we have our developers, our Tom Quinns who are here, pushing the boundaries of the Wii controller, the server networks, and then adapting that into new technologies around distillation. Absolutely incredible and remarkable. And then, of course, the businesses. The food that was provided to you today by Uncle Brian Wada from Kama'aina Catering, absolutely incredible that he brought the taste of aloha here today. So, and our film crew in the back that was able to provide all of the broadcasting and bring the Zooms today. And then the nonprofits, Friends of Waimanalo with their trades program, Lay Foundation, connecting people. And ultimately, it just showed together this partnership, this coming together. And tomorrow, when we come back to this forum and we're able to have these discussions and these questions and answers, we begin to form the shared relationship. We begin to ikialapono, cultivate change, because we can now commit into these things. We believe in one another. We can showcase aloha and this experience. So we're very grateful for today. And then, of course, walking into tomorrow to have a very active discussion and continue on with this 8th Bioeconomy Forum. So what does meaningful engagement really mean? And, for me, I came out to enrollment. That's what I would say. But according to Charmin, I have to read this because I'm not Charlotte Poy, so I'm going to read it. So relationship building, partnership development, bringing in resources. And this is the human idea, the intelligence, the financial aspect. Without the investment, without the grants, without the ability to push the boundaries, right? It means sometimes very organic conversations occur and develop into structured workshops, training, educational and informational meetings and presentation, and even forums and platforms much like this. So this is a perfect example of what SHAR does and what Lay Foundation is able to do with community. Is as a neighborhood board, and our neighborhood, she cares about community members. So we want to make sure that our community members are aware, they're educated, and they're positioned to ask questions to know what's happening in our community around power, around energy, around fuel. That way, when our electric bill goes up, we understand why. I think it's very important. When the cost of food goes up, the importation of animal feed, I think the topics that Pomai was suggesting, that we're losing our farms and we're not coming back. Why is this happening? So we have to understand this. So some of the work that Shar does, she engages with the sectors, with the energy companies. So this is a perfect example. We went to H-Power and I asked for a field trip. And I said, hey, how about we go to these different places, the power plants, and we thank them, and we ask questions, and we thank them for keeping the lights on, so that we can have our lifestyle, and we can enroll ourselves of what it actually takes, our carbon footprint, having responsibility for turning that light on, for flushing the toilet, and knowing that it's going to work. Very important. We don't want to lose sight of that. And that's really the type of effort, and where these conversations begin comes from a place of humility, of knowing that we have an abundance of resources around us that we need to harness, take advantage of, and ultimately be respectful of. Alika's hidden in there. Sydney's hanging out in this picture. So it is a collective effort. Ikialapono is the concept and activation of intentional and directed shared learning. These take many forms and can come in all kinds of packages, and it can be a formal platform, the settings like this Bioeconomy Forum and others like this convening, intra-industry, lessons learned, and best practices. So on the left-hand side is our Huaka'i site, Ho'a'aina o Makaha, which if you're available to come, you'll be able to see the work of the children at Makaha Elementary and the efforts that they put into the soil to create healthy soil systems, to grow food for community, to do aquaponics, to do solar platforms, to do this innovation, low-tech, high innovation. And at the same time, on the right-hand side is a training program that Dibs Hawaii did with young Native Hawaiian men and women on military bases, giving them incredible access to training, certifications, things that Scotty Reyes Moniz talked about in Friends of Waimanalo, and putting the right proper tools in place to be able to tackle a job that otherwise wouldn't have been done. 10 years ago, that job would have been handled with scaffolding. Instead, we placed the proper tools. We put kids like video games. They like the controllers. So I came into the situation. I said, well, what if we go and put all these travel lifts, articulating booms, and give the controls to the kids? Remarkable, the turnaround time, the safety, the efficiency, and ultimately the reduction in our carbon footprint. But that came from a place of shared learning. So it doesn't matter whether you're out in the field and you're growing food, or you're out on a facility and you're decarbonizing a process. Shared learning is real, and it's all the time if we're willing. So in order to do Ikialapono, it's very important outreach, and our outreach needs to be consistent, and we need to constantly communicate with each other. We can't break down, and this forum allows us to come together as one canoe, one vessel. Even though we're separated by an ocean, our consciousness, our understanding that we have the same problems, we're heading the same direction. We need to continue to communicate. Very important that we reach out to these boundaries, and we're going to do so this evening as we cultivate conversations and friendships and relationships, and then we move into tomorrow where we get to ask questions. And then, of course, the education, the content of the education, the current state of affairs. Do we have the best technologies? Do we have the best presenters? What are our failures? Where have we failed and where have we won? And how can we share that with each other so that we're not duplicating an effort? We continue to move forward. And ultimately, literacy. And I love this picture over here. I love to go back to the farm because this is where it all begins. I mean, shared learning starts. You see keiki tukupuna. You see the full spectrum of learning that's taking place. And in so many cases, the protege can also be the teacher to the mentor and the mentor to the protege. So that is Ikialapono. That is shared learning. And literacy is not just reading and writing and comprehension, but most importantly, it's increasing competency of a subject matter significantly enough so that it makes a difference. And I think that these forums and these conversations and the sharing cultivate that change and allow us to feel safe and comfortable as it pertains to literacy. And ultimately, the community. I think you saw how strong this consortium is because it came from the community. And everyone can reflect back to their community and the impacts that they lay on their community and what the community has done to lift up as innovators, as leaders. Yeah, so I think that's very important that we have the space of humility and remember that we can't change the world, but we can change our community first, right? It starts there. I might not be able to go make a big difference in California, but I can definitely start working on my street first. And that's a great place to start. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm just so excited that collectively we're outgrowing people. And if we come from a space of thanksgiving and appreciation for one another and respect, the ultimate goal is to grow people. And that way we can make change and we can have a difference and we can have impact and we continue to enroll one another. And with that being said, mahalo nui for your guys' time, your guys' care, your commitment to provide solutions in a difficult landscape, in a challenging world, as we continue to sharpen this spear together, yeah, so that we can go forward and make a big difference. I'm going to do multiple roles here. I don't see Alika in the room, so I'm just going to say that those are the closing remarks that I just touched upon. Is there any more slides that I don't know about, Sid? Okay. So, yes, thank you. We're going to prepare to move over to Washington Place, the Queen's residence. I think we touched upon earlier the significance of this event, why we chose to dedicate this event to the Queen, Queen Lilokalani, and her commitment to agriculture and her love for tropical plants and agriculture, and she established that bill so that we could create what is now CTAR and what is UH. And so what a better way to honor that and the focus of food and energy resilience than to go and celebrate and cultivate and share in friendship. We're going to have light refreshments. Kama'aina Catering has been so wonderful to provide emu prime rib sliders, and there's also vegetarian options. And we look forward to sharing in friendship across the street. And so mahalo nui, and we see you at Washington Place. Aloha.